Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about impermanent loss and how it's commonly misunderstood. So this came about because I've been seeing a lot of questions about impermanent loss in the Discord server, and here is one such example. So here's a player that says he's new to yield farming and he's in the garden for the Jewel 1 liquidity pool, and he says that if the price of Jewel goes up, he thinks he'll get hurt because of impermanent loss. So this is one of the many misunderstandings of impermanent loss, and this video will hopefully clarify things for you. So a common mistake made by newcomers to DeFi is that they avoid liquidity pools because they think impermanent loss means that they are losing money. And this is often not true. But before I explain why, let me first go through the basics. So the first thing to know about impermanent loss is that it only exists in liquidity pools, and it occurs when the price of the cryptocurrencies in the liquidity pool move at different rates. When this happens, you end up getting less of one of the cryptocurrencies and more of the other cryptocurrency. To understand how this works, check out my other video titled How Liquidity Pools Work. The next thing to know about impermanent loss is that it measures the difference between providing liquidity versus simply holding both cryptocurrencies in your wallet. And finally, impermanent loss gets worse as the price of both cryptocurrencies diverge. Okay, so now let me bring you through an example of how you could be making money even though you are suffering from impermanent loss. In this example, let's say that we are looking at the Jewel UST liquidity pool and the APR on that pool is 1,500% and you decide to join that pool. After you join, the price of Jewel shoots up from $3 to $9 in a month. Now let's use an impermanent loss calculator to see how this affects us. Now let's say token A is Jewel and token B is UST. So Jewel starts at $3 and UST starts at $1. And as we mentioned earlier, the price of Jewel goes up from $3 to $9, and because UST is a stable coin, it remains at $1. So as you can see, the impermanent loss based on this situation here is 13.4%. Now if we had not provided liquidity and simply held $500 of Jewel and $500 of UST in our wallets, then the overall value at the end is $2,000. So this is a 100% gain from $1,000 here, this is the initial capital, to $2,000 at the end of this example. If on the other hand, we provided liquidity, then we would end up with $1,732. So notice that this amount here, by providing liquidity, is less than this amount here, which is holding both tokens alone in our wallet. Now, because this amount is less than this amount, okay, the difference between these two numbers is impermanent loss here, which is 13.4% in this example. Now note that even though there is impermanent loss, the final number here by providing liquidity is still higher than the initial capital. So to summarize, we suffered an impermanent loss of approximately 13%, and because the liquidity pool APR is 1,500%, that works out to a monthly APR of 125% and an overall liquidity pool capital growth of approximately 73%. When we add these two numbers together, we end up with a total gain of 198%. Now, if we had not provided liquidity and simply held both tokens alone in our wallet, we would have no impermanent loss, but also no liquidity pool rewards. In this case, we would have ended up with a total return of 100%, comprised solely from the rise of the Jewel token from $3 to $9. So if you compare the returns of these two situations, you see that providing liquidity adds an additional 98% return even though there is impermanent loss. And this is made possible by the high liquidity pool rewards as well as the higher Jewel token price. Now let's take a look at another situation in which we join a liquidity pool but there is no impermanent loss. In this case, let's say we join the Jewel Bitcoin liquidity pool and the APR for this pool is 60%. Now let's say the price of Jewel drops from $6 to $4 in a month, and the price of Bitcoin also drops from $60,000 to $40,000 within the same time period. In this case, because the price of both cryptocurrencies fall in the same proportion, there is no impermanent loss. And if we add up the relevant numbers here, we see the liquidity pool rewards are 5% a month, and the pool drops 33% in size. That works out to a loss of 28%. Now, if we didn't join the liquidity pool and just held both cryptocurrencies in our wallets, then the total return would be negative 33%. In this case, even though there is no impermanent loss, we still end up losing money. So the thing to keep in mind is that impermanent loss is not the same as losing money. It's more helpful to think about it in terms of opportunity cost. So the bottom line here is that if you are thinking about joining a liquidity pool, there are two main considerations you should think about. First is where you think the price of the tokens in the liquidity pool is headed. If you think the price of at least one of the tokens in that pool is going down, then you probably don't want to be providing liquidity for that pool. Another way to think about it is that you should only be providing liquidity for tokens that you don't think will go down in price. So this is the first main consideration, and the second is the liquidity pool rewards. If the liquidity pool reward is high enough, then impermanent loss is probably not an issue. If you've accounted for these two main factors, then impermanent loss is probably not something you'll need to worry about. To get a sense of why this is the case, I encourage you to play around with the impermanent loss calculator to get a sense of how impermanent loss affects your total return. After playing around with it for a while, I think you'll see that impermanent loss is really not such a big deal unless one of the cryptocurrencies in the liquidity pool plummets very drastically. Most of the time though, impermanent loss is not going to be much of an issue, especially when the liquidity pool rewards are high. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you found this to be useful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.